I've used these passive loop switchers for a while, and I grabbed this extra one. I buy them secondhand when I find them, when I find fairly clean examples, and this one was no exception. Loopmaster, of course, if you dig hard enough on the forums, you'll find they have kind of a dubious reputation. However, I've never had any trouble with their products, other than I have had a switch get stuck at the halfway point, and I have had general dirt and things like that. But I buy these secondhand. They're not purchased brand new. I buy them secondhand. I go through them, and whatever service problems that there are my fault. And I don't really have a manufacturer to blame them on because they're just bought used. So this one is no exception. This one is also secondhand, and I'm kind of going through it. One of the drawbacks to the Loopmaster design that people complain about is that they're riveted together. You have to drill the rivets out. That's what I've done right here. It's an aluminum rivet. It drills very easy. Uses just a regular 1/8" bit. We'll take it right out. 1/8" rivets and pop rivet gun are very, very common at just hardware stores, so they're very easy to replace. You can replace them with screws if you want to. Personally, the rivets are just as easy for me. They're one less thing to take loose, and I don't have a problem drilling them out. So that's what I've done here. I've drilled them out, and now I'll disassemble it and show you how it's put together. I don't have a tripod setup or anything. So that's what it looks like on the inside. That's a lot of jacks, a lot of wire to go through. And of course the cables add to it as well. So over here we have the 9-volt. It's just a regular Boss style 9-volt center tip type of a plug. And what that does, the loop switcher will work without that, but that's a very desirable thing to have because that lights, you have LED indicators for which loop is turned on. And you can see they're kind of goop glued in there. Looks like a silicone adhesive of some type. Signed Loopmaster. A little bit of pride putting these together. This shown. And you can see the LEDs also have, they're probably not a 12, probably not a 9-volt LED, probably 5 or something. They do have a little resistor here to drop the voltage. And it's set to this pin that's only active when the switch is clicked on, so that's an important detail. And on this daisy chain, you see that they're all run together like that for the LEDs. Those all run to here to the negative tip. So that's the real purpose of the power, is to supply the LEDs so you know which loop you're in without actually playing to find out, and you don't have to remember. You can concentrate on your music and not worry about which loop you're in at any given time, or which loop you're getting ready to hit next. And so we have a in and out jack at each end, and then multiple loops. That's a loop, that's one, that's one, that's one. That's how they're put together. And so I've had this one, I've taken it and cleaned it, as is commonly needed in these secondhand units. And I've used a Q-tip, and you can see there's some black oxidization, if this will pick it up. There is some black gunk, and that just came from the jacks. And I'm going to attempt to clean these switches, and I'll be right back in just a second. And just to give you an idea what I'm doing to attempt to somewhat clean these switches, it's hard to really, you can't really get inside them. So once they fail internally, you might as well put a new switch in, which is definitely not out of the question on a used unit like this. We'll see. But all I'm doing is, I don't even have contact cleaner here. This is just carburetor cleaner, which is primarily acetone. And all I'm trying to do is kind of solvent wash these and get any major crud off of them. I'm just applying a little dribble and then clicking it. Ten, 15, 20 times, and that's about it for the cleaning. And then I'll wipe off all these shafts with a cloth, and I'll reassemble it. Be right back. Not everyone has used these. I was lucky enough in shop class in grade school to use them. I realize not everyone has a shop class or even has a grade school anymore. So that's what the rivet looks like out of the package. And this is what the pop rivet gun looks like. Basically, load the rivet. It's fun trying to do this one-handed. Load the rivet in here. Easier to do with both hands. There we go. Load it in there and switch hands. And we'll stick the rivet in there. The pop rivet is like almost a story in itself. And set the phone down so I can get these two pieces to go together. There we go. You push the pop rivet all the way down like that. Squeeze the levers on the rivet tool. And drop it down as it goes. Much easier to do two-handed than one-handed. There we go. And you hear a pop. And that's it. And what happens is the pin, that pin right there, has a ball on the end of it. And there's a little notch cut in this. And it pulls the ball through the aluminum until the aluminum expands to the point that it can't anymore. And then the notch creates a weak point in this pin and it snaps off. And that's what makes a popping sound. So that one's attached. And I'll do this 3 more times. All right. Well, I've got it all back together. Pop rivet. Another one. 2 more on the other side. 1, 2. And quick solvent wipe. I also went over all these fasteners to make sure that the jacks were not loose. Went through all these fasteners to make sure that the switches weren't loose. And let's see how it works. All right, here's my super complicated and very, very fancy test rig here in my richly appointed YouTube studio. Not. Maybe someday, just not today. So what I've set up to test this is this cord goes out to a little practice amp, a little 15-watt bullet solid state practice amp, and then these 2 cords going into the Ibanez chorus are going to the send and return of loop 1. So only loop 1 is functional. And you can see it's powered by that cord there. And also the loopmaster, or loop switcher, is powered by the same 9-volt cord, which is just a daisy chain cord from, oh, I don't know, Guitar Center or Amazon or something like that. And the blue cord coming out, that's the in to the loop. And that goes to my 1992 Stevie Ray Vaughan Signature Stratocaster, which is just laying here on a chair so I'll pluck a few open strings and see if the loop works. Let's see. And loop 1's right here. It's either 1 or 6. And there we have our chorus effect. Nice and clean. And now I'm going to run through and test all the loops and look for problems. And I'll be right back. 3. A little bit of noise. Let's see. Probably just dirt working its way out. There we go. Got it to duplicate a little bit. I believe that to be no big deal there. So let's loop 3 one more time. Okay, this switch, I hear a slight buzz to this one. Yeah, that's going to need some more cleaning. Okay, so from the outside, I've hit loop 3 with some deoxit. Not carburetor cleaner this time, because I have some deoxit in the basement that I forgot I had. No noise on loop 3 now, thanks to this stuff, which truthfully, I mean, full disclosure, probably should have used this to begin with, but I forgot I had it, so I just used whatever I had in the garage, and that took care of a lot of it, but that one was stubborn. So let me try the next spot, and I'll be right back. And we're plugged into loop 4. Little noise on that one too. Oh yeah. Clean that one from the outside as well. Loop 4 was a little more stubborn than 3, but I think I got it. Nice clean transition there. And again, all I'm doing is using deoxit, and I'm running the smallest little bit of it, not even at full spray. I'm just running it like here, trying to get it to run down this actual plunger thing or whatever you call it. Trying to get some of it in there. I don't believe it's actually the switching contacts themselves that get cruddy. I think it's a ground that the outside of it looks forward to the case, and it can't make a good ground personally. That's my best guess. Any of these give me a bunch of trouble or get super old or whatever, I'll just replace them all. But if I can clean them and get good sound out of them, my experience has been that generally they last a long time if you just do this cleanup ever so often. And because this was a new unit, it was nice to take the box apart and take the rivets out and actually have a look at it. The solder joints look beautiful. The workmanship is just fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And okay, so with loop 4 out of the way, let's move to loop 5 and see how that one sounds. Loop 5. I know this isn't particularly exciting, but it's what I go through. It's got a little crunch when I turn the switch on. Yeah, you hear that? Oh yeah, that needs to be cleaned. All right, we'll go back after loop 5 too. 5 post clean out. And for about the 1000th time in my career, if you can call it a career in music, deoxit works miracles, and cleaned it right up. Yep, that's working good. Now you'll know if a switch is going open because you can hear an increase in noise. Listen to this. Hear the buzz? That little buzz, of course this is a loop without anything hooked up to it. So of course it'll mute it, and it'll also buzz. Almost like it's not grounded correctly. And you can hear that like in a switch that's dirty, you'll hear it do that. Somewhere in the movement of the plunger, you'll hear it making kind of a crunch or dirty or grimy sound. Of course, if any switch like feels gritty, the movement of it, if it feels like actual sand got in there, you might as well toss the switch. It's probably junk at that point, but these aren't like that. I can see why the previous owner got rid of it, because it was acting up and probably failed, and they just tossed it. So Okay, well, we're going to move on to loop 6 and see how that one works. And if it's making noise, we'll do the same thing. Thought we'd never get here. Here we are with loop 6. Hear that little bit of a zzz? Hear that? No, those little noises when the plunger is mid-travel, we don't want that. Okay, gonna clean that. Right, number 6, I stopped and cleaned it out the same way I did the others. So I'm not only listening to, does it make a nice smooth transition from the affected to non-affected signal and back and forth, but I'm listening for noise in between. Because some of these switches, you move them just a little bit, not enough to activate them. Like that much. And it can be turning it off or turning it on. You can get it in between a point where it's not making the contact it needs to, and it'll cut out. In the many years I've used these, that's happened to me one time. And all I did was stomp on everything repeatedly, and it came right back. I knew it was because I just changed something from one sound to another, and somewhere like in the middle of the click it cut out. It's like, oh jeez, here we go. All right, it looks like it's working. Play for a minute and talk about these things a little bit. So there you have it. I've got a freshened up, cleaned up secondhand loop switcher that works really well now and sounds really nice and clean and should work well. I'm going to do a smaller board that I can kind of experiment and play around with, and it should be handy for that. As to the switcher itself, a lot of people ask, why? Why do you want that? How is that beneficial? To that I say, if you've ever used vintage pedals that have switches, on-off switches that go bad when they're used a lot, this takes that out of the equation. You're no longer stomping on that switch all the time. You're stomping on another switch that's easier and cheaper to replace. You may not like the feeling of soft switches. I'm not a huge fan of them. I prefer the switch that clicks. I like that mechanical I don't want to look at it. I like the feel of it click. It's reassuring to me. So you may prefer how it feels. It takes the wear and tear of other parts of the pedal out of the equation. Other parts of the pedal? What do you mean? Well, if you like the way the Ibanez 10 series and Master series sound, take a look at how they're constructed. Personally, I'm a big fan of that series of pedals. The input and output jacks are soldered to the circuit board directly, and there is no kind of mechanical fastener holding the jack itself to the outside of the case. So every time you plug the cord or unplug the cord from one of those pedals, you're putting stress on the solder joints themselves. Every time you step on the pedal, if there's any tension in the cables between that pedal and another one, which there's usually a little bit, every time you step on it, the pedal rocks back and forth just a slight little bit. You're working the cable back and forth. Do that hundreds of times. Who's to say when the solder joint let go? This takes that type of mechanical wear out of the equation. Well, some would say, well, that's just a badly designed pedal. Okay, sure. Yeah, it's a design fault. There's no doubt about it. And it's probably a cost save, right? It's probably cheaper to do. You don't have to use the old jack that attaches to the housing and then you run separate wires to the circuit board. So it's a labor savings, right? The parts themselves are cheaper probably, and the labor was cheaper too. But the situation is those pedals haven't been made since the 80s. If you want stuff that sounds like the 80s, which I kind of do sometimes, it's really great to be able to use authentic stuff from back in that time and not beat it up by stomping on it constantly. So that's another aspect to it. Another kind of funny aspect is if you're on the clumsy side and you have a tendency to kick the controls, kick the knobs and whatnot on your effects pedals after you thought you had them set, then you turn it on and you go, what is this? That's not what I wanted. Well, it turns out you changed it inadvertently. If that happens to you a lot, the loop switcher doesn't eliminate that chance of happening, but it does lessen the chance of it happening. It used to be a very regular thing for me. Nowadays, only rarely do I go, oops, I must have ran the cable across that knob or whatnot, because I really don't kick them anymore. But sometimes a cable, like a mic cable, will be strung across it or something like that, and I'll move it not thinking that it touched any of the controls, but it did. And you have to go back and fix it, or it's not going to sound the way you wanted it to. So those are some of the reasons. Anyway, they weigh next to nothing. That loopmaster box is actually aluminum. And I'm rambling. I'm going to cut myself off right there and just say thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Take care now. Have a good day. Bye.